Hello and welcome to the beautiful city of Rome for the latest chapter in the story of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. With 3 rounds in the books, we've travelled more than 6,000 miles from Mexico to the Italian capital for the first round of the European leg of the championship. The drivers absolutely love this track. In fact, they love it so much we're going to race on it twice. Double the fun, why not? This is Rome and we are electric.
Rome is always amazing.
The circuit is super technical.
It's the best track, but also the hardest one.
It's very challenging.
This race will be my home race.
Well, all 5 lights are on, and we go green in Rome. De Vries, Bird and Roland wiped out. And the 2 Mercedes collide. And a big spin. Roland goes for it again.
Boys, we've done it!
Vandoorne wins the Rome E-Prix. Nyck de Vries and Lotterer. Vergne wins. The Eternal City is about to play host to the Rome E-Prix.
Yes, good morning everyone and welcome to Rome. Dario Franchitti, multiple IndyCar champion. Jack Nicholls, our lead race commentator. We are welcoming you to the Italian capital. We are back racing. It's been 6 weeks since we last raced in Mexico City, and the excitement here in downtown Rome, you can feel it, you can smell it. Everyone wants to get back behind the steering wheel. Everyone wants to get back in the seat, Jack.
Behind the Colosseum, there's all these big posters advertising the race this weekend. So you're going to have a little look around, and it's tremendous. So everyone's excited. There's been so much downtime in between these races that they all want to put into practice what they've learned after Mexico.
That downtime, Dario, does it put a little bit of pressure on some drivers? Because some guys had a great Mexico, some not so good. Some had a shocker in the Mexican capital. So as a driver, from a driver's perspective, how does that make you feel coming into Rome?
Yeah, the ones that haven't had a good time, they've got a long time to think about it, and they're thinking, God, what do I need to do? How do I need to change it? All the teams they're doing a lot of simulation stuff, and they're theoretically, everybody's got the answers coming into today's race, but we'll soon find out who has and who hasn't.
Jack, this is a track that the drivers love. Lots of elevation, lots of twisting turns. This is our IP. This is a classical street circuit.
Absolutely. It's quick, it's challenging. As you say, the elevation's phenomenal. We're sort of at the highest point of the track, but you'll see the cars drop down and they fall down to the ground and then they come back up. There's a really tricky little chicane, actually, that caught out 2 drivers earlier on today. Both Oliver Askew and Andre Lotterer hit the chicane in exactly the same way within about 20 seconds of each other. So that was a frustration for them, and actually it cost them a lot of running time. And that's particularly frustrating for Lotterer after doing so well, finishing second in Mexico.
Yeah, it seems like we've been waiting a long time for Porsche to rise to the top of the Formula E field, but Mexico was awesome. That's what we wanted to see from this team. Can they maintain it, Dario?
Yeah, I think they can maintain it, Vern. You know, Porsche, whatever they've done in racing for decades, they've always been right up there. And now Formula E is no exception. That 1-2 dominant performance in Mexico City. They've got the rest of the teams worried, though. And that's what we like to see. Somebody up there challenging the Mercedes EQ powertrains, as well as Jaguar and the rest of the field.
Jack, Andre Lotterer still not won a Formula E race, but that 1-2 is getting him closer to the top of the podium.
Yeah, exactly. He's finished second 7 times now, which is a record in Formula E. It's very impressive, but he wants to get that win.
All right, we are looking forward to an awesome race. We've got 2 new members of the team, by the way, that we should introduce, because Nikki Shields and Mark, her fella, have brought a new person into the world. So congratulations to Nikki and Mark. Orlando is with us. It's lovely. Hopefully we'll see him soon. But we've got 2 new members, Radzi Chinyanganya and Isha Acton. And Radzi right now is with Nyck de Vries.
Vernon, thank you very much. I have to say, just being in the paddock, it's absolutely awesome. A genuine frenetic energy here, special for so many reasons, partly because I'm delighted to be joined by the reigning Formula E champion, Nyck de Vries. Nyck, currently second in the standings so far. How do you assess your season so far?
Well, it's very early on. We only did 3 races, but yeah, fairly positive beginning of the season for us. Obviously, yeah, we had some missed opportunities, I think, especially in Saudi race 2 when we obviously started from pole and came home with P10. But generally positive about our start. But as I said, it's such a long season that anything can happen.
You mentioned anything can happen. A lot of the guys are talking about the excitement in the studio for racing here in Rome. Does that apply to yourself?
Yeah, definitely. It's great to be back in Europe, and also yeah, to be back racing again. Obviously, we had quite a bit of a break, so yeah, looking forward to get underway and to kind of start our season from here onwards. Lots of people back on track, so it's yeah, I think it's a good way to start our real season, really.
I have to say, I'm very excited. It all begins with qualification. Your car looks incredible behind you, by the way. What will it take to get that on pole today?
I think, well, coming through the group stage, of course, is important. Being clean, putting a lap together is very important. And then, yeah, when you actually manage to get through, you obviously need to, really nail it. But I think initially you need to make sure you, complete a clean lap to make it through.
Nyck, thanks so much for your time. Good luck in qualies, and Vernon, it's back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Radzi. Yeah, a very focused young man there. And Nyck de Vries.
Hey.
But let's talk about Mercedes as a whole, because obviously their powertrain is also in the Venturi. Edo Mortara, top of the driver standings at the moment. So for Mercedes as a whole, it's going pretty well this season.
Yeah, and Nyck de Vries is second in the championship, so they're very much in the fight. There's only 5 points between them. And after Dirrier, you thought they're going to dominate, but then Porsche came in and have showed some pace. Jaguar need to show some pace. Jean-Eric Vergne for DS Techeetah was quickest in practice too. So this qualifying session is going to be so important because, okay, it's only round 4 of 16, but you're now a quarter of the way through the season. So qualifying is just going to be so important.
Yeah, it really is. And it's nice to see all those teams putting themselves in the mix, because Jack's right, Dario. We did think, oh gosh, here we go, Mercedes are going to run away with this.
Yeah, they look so strong in those first rounds in Dirrier, but you can see just week in, week out how things change. Look at Andretti, they were so strong in Dirrier. They showed up in Mexico. The car looked dreadful. This weekend here in Rome again, it looks good though. So I think
we had an interesting chat with Roger Griffiths, didn't we? The boss over there at Andretti. And he was like,
I wasn't invited to.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jack. He was kind of like, yeah, we got it completely wrong. It was a nightmare. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But also, we've got a new qualifying format, which has been really, really good. And it's done everything that we wanted it to do in the 3 races so far. So let's get into qualifying and let's take a look at what it actually means to qualify well in Formula E and the changes that we've made to our qualifying system. Formula E's new qualifying format will see the fastest drivers going head-to-head in a one-lap shootout to decide pole position. Here's how it works. The 22 drivers are split into 2 groups based on championship position. Drivers have 12 minutes to set a lap time, and the fastest 4 from each group go through to a knockout stage, where drivers will compete against each other head-to-head over one staggered flying lap.
Huge performance this from Nyck de Vries.
The fastest drivers will progress through to the quarter and semi-final stage, leaving a final pair to battle it out for the Julius Baer Pole Position and 3 championship points.
De Vries takes pole position by 0.005 of a second.
The winner and runner-up start the race from 1st and 2nd place on the grid, with the remaining positions ranked on lap times.
And we go green in Mexico City.
So, new season, new format, with best performances rewarded. Except Formula E often writes its own scripts.
It's time for qualifying then, ahead of the 4th round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship, the Rome E-Prix. Really, really looking forward to seeing how this qualifying session unfolds. It's so crucial to get in the top 4 in the groups and then, therefore, get into the duels where you go head-to-head, because I think without that, you're going to be starting a long way down the order. Here's how the groups will head out. In Group A, we will have Eduardo Mortara, Pascal Wehrlein, Stoffel Vandoorne, Jake Dennis, Robin Frijns, Sam Bird. Basically, the odd-numbered drivers in the championship standings, and then the even-numbered drivers, i.e. those 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, etc., will head out afterwards. There is the championship leader, Dario, Eduardo Mortara. He's not had a pole position, has Edo. He's been 2nd, I think, 3 times on the grid, but never taken a pole position. Is today going to be the day?
Absolutely could be, Jack. It's going to be so close, though. I think Edo's probably more focused on the race this afternoon as the cars start to leave pit lane, but he's in such a good rhythm. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that he does end up on pole position, but I think whatever happens, he is going to be a factor in this afternoon's race.
And there is Pascal Wehrlein getting ready to head out. He took pole and the win last time in Mexico City, as the Porsche driver gets ready to pull out onto the circuit in a few moments' time. So basically the way this group works is they will do 2 runs fundamentally. You have to do a lap in the first 6 minutes and in the second 6 minutes of qualifying. The quickest times will come at the end of the session, though, you would usually imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. As the track evolves, as the more rubber goes down, the tyres adhere better to rubber than the asphalt. As the track cleans up a bit, get rid of some of the dust, and the drivers just get more familiar with the track and perfect their car setup. Yeah, absolutely. I think the times will come at the end, and I think it's going to be close too, Jack.
11 minutes on the clock then. And Sam Bird out on circuit there. We're going to... It'll be interesting to see how they get going in these early times as well, because there will be some pace in there too. And speaking to Jaguar, James Barclay, the team principal, about, I don't know, 5 minutes ago? No, we were on air 5 minutes ago, weren't we? When did we come? About 10 minutes ago, then it must have been. It was literally just before we came on air. I was nearly late. But, and he was saying, we're looking good. We turned up in Mexico, we were nowhere. They feel like they're in the window here straight away. And according to their data, they were 2nd and 3rd in the 220 kilowatt laps, which is what they're going to be running in here. So they're feeling quite confident. But yeah, they need a result.
Jaguar do need a result, absolutely, Jack, and I think that's imperative today. You can say that about a couple of the teams, but Jaguar, we were expecting such good things from them. We had such high expectations, and it just hasn't happened so far. You know, they're down in the championship, and who thought Jaguar would be 7th in the points at this stage? Okay, it's only 3 races into the season, but yeah, they've got to start making things happen. See Jake Dennis coming down the hill through turn 2. One thing to consider here as well, 11 cars on track. Traffic could be an issue. So Jake Dennis just the back end stepping out as he exits turn 3.
It's a fairly long circuit, this one, 3.38 kilometers. Not crazy long, but you know, on the sort of longer-ish side as far as Formula E tracks go. So hopefully traffic will be a little bit less of an issue. But the problem you have is sort of that tight, twisty stuff, isn't it, towards the end of the lap. If this is your first time watching along with us this weekend, we're coming up now towards turn 7. Huge bump under braking as he turns left at Piazza Gandhi, Jake Dennis, and then in towards the next left-hander at turn 8. That puts him out in front of the Coliseo Quadrato. And then through this rhythm section, you call it. Why do you call it a rhythm section?
You've got to get into that rhythm of the speed through each corner. If you overdo the first corner, it messes up the second and the third, for instance. And this is him coming out of that section, out of a turn 11 up to 12, and the bumpy straight. We saw so much action. He's got to thread the needle through the chicane of 12 and 13, and he almost got caught out. Almost looked like he overdid the middle point of the corner, so messed up the exit a little bit. There's a right-hander at turn 14 as he comes up now to the long Marconi hairpin at turn 15. The attack mode activations, almost will explain more in the race later on.
Kept it right into the wall all the way around there. You see some drivers a little wider, whether that's by design or not, I don't know.
And this is just a bank lap as well. This is just sort of setting and still getting the tyres up to pressure, and just again getting comfortable with the track as he comes to turn 19 out the final corner, as he comes up to the finish line and the timeline, which is different than the start line.
So Dennis
41.0.
Yeah, and the quickest time we saw earlier on was a 1 minute 39.0, so 2 seconds slower, Jake Dennis. Those would have been at full power laps, so I doubt we will get to a 39.0, but we've also still got plenty of time left in this session, less than 8 minutes. Buemi comes across the line to do a 41.7. There is the aforementioned James Barclay, the team principal. Is Wehrlein getting that stopped? Yes, he is. It's always stressful when they go into that chicane all locked up.
And that's for us sitting in the commentary booth. I had my eyes closed there when I heard that. His teammate Andre Lotterer, another Porsche, had a fairly sizable, did some damage to the car this morning and missed about half of free practice too. As we see Pascal Wehrlein finished 1 in Mexico. Dominant performance from the Porsche team, but all that be for nothing if you wipe one of the corners off this early in qualifying.
Absolutely, which is what his teammate Andre Lotterer did in free practice. Mortara has just done the fastest middle sector, the championship leader. Mortara second in the last 2 races, in fact. So I mentioned he has 3 second places and no poles. We're riding with him here. The hashtag Stand With Ukraine on the halo there. Comes across the line, Mortara, and he does go fastest. Stoffel Vandoorne is following him across the line. And, oh, is he going to beat Mortara here? No, he doesn't. He's about 0.2 of a second slower. Robin Frijns is on a lap as well. He's just on the fastest middle sector of anyone as he now comes down to Cristoforo Colombo.
I've got to say that Mortara's car, the balance of the black Venturi car with the Mercedes EQ powertrain, looks fabulous. As we see Robin Frijns, the rear of the car sliding around as he tries to turn in to turn 15, the Marconi hairpin.
He's all right after the first 2 sectors, though. Envision didn't really look on the pace in free practice, had a little work with the team, and they said, yeah, we got a few things we need to work on, mainly kind of software-based, I think, as he comes into the final corner now. Robin Frijns out to cross the line, nice little drift, and Frijns goes fastest, a 1 minute 40.538. I'm a bit surprised by that.
I am too, because that was a typical Robin Frijns lap of being absolutely over the limit of the grip available. As Sam Bird comes to the finish line now. Mitch Evans, sorry, P1, 40.375.
So he goes quicker than Frijns. Mortara third. The track is getting cleaned up the whole time they're doing this. Okay, there was no running for an hour, but we're in the middle of a city, all the stuff that flows onto the track, as Ian James on his new leaning post that he seems to really enjoy watching the action unfold at Mercedes EQ. But the track's getting cleaner and cleaner. That's Florian Modlinger at Porsche.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said earlier, Jack, the tyres adhere much better to other rubber on the circuit than it does to just the bare asphalt. And so, again, the track's going to get quicker and quicker. We've got a bit of a lull in the activity with 5 minutes to go.
Dennis and Buemi back in the pit lane. Oh, that's Bird up at Piazza Gandhi. He wasn't pushing.
He was on a cool-down lap.
He was on a cool-down lap. He was 10 seconds off the pace in sector 1, so it's a bit of an odd one there for Bird, but he's got going again. 5th at the moment, outside of the bubble, let's call it, outside of the 4 that will advance through to the duels. And this is what happened to the British driver for Jaguar TCS Racing. Onto the brakes. Yeah, just straight on.
Oh, but I wonder if that's because he was going so slowly, and obviously the back brakes of the car work on the regen of the engine to some degree.
It was like, I think it was also only 50 meters where he hit the brake pedal, so it might have just been a bit of a...
There was a kind of a vibration. You could hear the noise of a high-pitched vibration, high frequency. So interesting.
Could it have just been he thought he was going slowly, but he was actually just going a bit quicker than he thought he was going slowly? You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely a possibility. We see a lot more cars coming back into pit lane now. Again, 4 minutes to go.
Buemi's on his way out then. So with 4 minutes to go, Buemi's on his way out of the pit lane. Mortara's on a lap then. So I don't think he's been through the pits, Eduardo Mortara. And he is 3/10 down after the middle sector as he comes into the chicane here.
He's going to have to do better than
Oof,
that.
right up to the wall on the exit.
That was decent though through 12-13. Again, coming to 14. Corner you can carry a lot of speed through. Possibly a little touch of the wall, but if it was a brush.
Bird has done a very quick first sector, almost a 10th up on Mitch Evans, his Jaguar teammate. So that is positive. But we see different tyre strategies here because these drivers have been out on these same tyres for quite a few laps now. And maybe, I would suggest with 3 minutes to go, they're going to stay on these one set of tyres for the whole session.
Yeah, you would think so. Maybe it's going to be a cool-down lap. It's pretty cold out there today, isn't it? So that means the tyres aren't going to get too warm. You've got to get the tyre warm to work. But if you get it too warm, it gets outside its operating window, and you really don't want that. Sam Bird did a great first sector, but slowed down. And he's really slowed down now as he comes out of turn 11 and 12. So, yeah, the teams are all trying to get the tyre pressure and the tyre temperature and keep it in the operating window. Too low, it doesn't work. Too high, it doesn't work either.
I think Bird made a mistake in sector 2, so that's what happened for Sam Bird. James Barkley heading into the...
I just saw somebody pass him. Hopefully he didn't hold up the car behind that passed him.
There's Oliver Askew, who's a little bit behind the curve because he had an accident in free practice 2, so lost a little bit of running. I believe Bird was blocked on his hot lap, the team is saying, but Birdie, he is staying out for the whole session. That is the Jaguar tactic, is that they will be staying out for the whole session. I think the same is true of Venturi because Mortara hasn't come into the pits, so interesting how different these drivers do it. Let's watch Sebastian Buemi, the Season 2 champion in the Nissan Edams, coming down the hill, and he is on a push lap, and we are with him in driver's eye.
exit through turn 3, crosses the start line.
In fact, I don't think he
slowed down. No, he's pulled over, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether he was or wasn't. He was the first driver to go out with 4 minutes on the clock, but he's obviously not happy with the conditions the tyres are in, or doing a sort of double warm-up lap, let's say.
And Mitch Evans, ahead of him in the Jaguar, he's got the problem now is all these drivers coming out of pits and getting in his way when he was trying to do a push lap. So he's backed off as well now.
Pascal Wehrlein down in 8th place in the Porsche. He looked quick in free practice earlier on.
This is going to change this in the next 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Exactly.
This order's going to change beyond all recognition, I would say.
This is where it is all going to kick off in the next minute or so. And I just wonder if we're going to be tight on time here, because there's a minute on the clock. You've got to start the line before you've got to cross the line before the clock ticks to 0, sort of self-evidently. And I just wonder if we might be a little tight.
As usual, the drivers want to be the last one on the track because the conditions are at their best, and that could be the difference between a couple of hundredths of a second and make the difference between getting in the top 4, progressing to the group stages and not.
This is Jake Dennis in the Avalanche Andretti coming down the hill into turn 3. Oh, back end gave him a little snap. Little Yui. And he's back on his way. Roger Griffiths watching that unfold. Here comes Wehrlein. As he comes down into the left-hander and then starts to climb up the hill now. So Wehrlein through the first sector, he's 800ths up. So Wehrlein is the first driver on a quick lap. There's 5 seconds to go, and I think everyone's got over the line. So Dennis just gets over with 1 second left on the clock. Bird has just taken the checker flag. Bird has taken the checker flag, and I think Jaguar have missed it. Bird will not be going through.
Absolute disaster for the Jaguar team.
Sam Bird will not be advancing through to the duels and doesn't even get a lap in the part of qualifying, in group qualifying A. Now we'll focus on the drivers who are out there. Frijns has done a huge sector 1, 2/10 quicker than Mitch Evans in the first sector alone. Vandoorne is a 10th up. Evans is 400ths up. This man Pascal Wehrlein comes through the middle sector and he is 300ths up as he comes down into the Marconi hairpin.
And 300ths of a second is not going to get it done. Pascal Wehrlein is going to have a mighty last sector if he wants to go into the knockout stages of qualifying and get a chance of being on pole position for this afternoon's race.
Frijns' middle sector is good as well. He's nearly 3/10 up on Mitch Evans, who's losing time on the middle part of the lap. So both Jaguars are in a bit of trouble here. Here comes Pascal Wehrlein through the left-hander at turn 19. Out, cuts the timing beam now. Mortara doesn't improve, he's only 4th. The championship leader is in big trouble here. Frijns, the back end, always trying to swap ends on him. Wehrlein has gone quickest. Wehrlein, Evans, Frijns and Mortara going through at the moment. Here comes the Dutchman, out across the line. And Frijns goes fastest, a 10th ahead of Pascal Wehrlein. Here comes Stoffel Vandoorne. He goes up into 2nd place. Evans is on the bubble in 4th position. He comes across the line now. He remains in 4th position. Dennis is on a decent lap as well. Buemi goes 8th. Here comes Jake Dennis. Can he get up into the top 4? Askew goes up into 9th place. Dennis goes fastest. A 1 minute 40.069. Both Jaguars are eliminated. Jake Dennis, Robin Frijns, Stoffel Vandoorne and Pascal Wehrlein will advance through to the group stages, to the duel stages, I should say. Both Jaguars out. The championship leader, Eduardo Mortara, is out. Sims, Buemi, Askew and Ticktum out as well. But that's bad news at Jaguar. On the weekend that they really needed to turn their championship around. But Dennis getting in there at the last minute. Frijns as well. So Bird, we think, so here's the checkered flag look, and Bird doesn't make it in time. There it waves, and they've had that before on occasions. Traffic is the Jaguar are blaming traffic for it.
He doesn't want to be so close to the car in front that it disrupts his lap, but obviously there's no chance of it. They just cut it probably a little bit too fine in some of the extenuating circumstances, what other cars did out there. It all means that Sam Bird is going to be starting 13th to 14th.
He's looking at the timing screen over on the wall. Climbs out of the car. Where's he off to?
Get weighed.
Yeah, he's off to get weighed, isn't he? Crossing over the... Well, qualifying Group A. Dennis, Frijns, Vandoorne and Wehrlein all advance through. Evans 5th, Mortara 6th, Bird, Sims, Buemi, Askew and Tictum, the 11 drivers in Group A. So, there is Bird on his way to be getting weighed. Mortara out as well, the championship leader, out in the first group of qualifying. What are you taking from that, Dario?
Taken as close as this field is, that could have major implications on this afternoon's result. Yeah, I'm really shocked with Mortara. He seemed on such a run of form, everything was just flowing, and it just didn't quite come together when it really needed to. Oh, Buemi and Bird. I think we know who blocked Sam Bird.
Yeah, and Bird is furious. Well, let's go and join Isha Acton. She is with James Barclay, the team principal at Jaguar. Isha?
I'm with James Barclay in the Jaguar garage. So it's been a tough season so far, and it's not getting any easier.
Well, to be honest, we've had really good speed in free practice 1 and 2 this morning, and what we've just seen there, we have to get on top of traffic in qualifying. Both our drivers, Sam and Mitch, both had traffic, were blocked on their fast laps. Mitch fastest on his first run, clear lap. And we just couldn't get a break with traffic, and we have to look at this in this group format because it's a great new format, but if we can't set our lap times, it becomes a disadvantage. So it's tough. We have to take it on the chin, and listen, we'll make the most of the race today, but we had a really fast racing car. Unfortunately, traffic has really hindered us. So there's not much we need to go away and analyse that, see if there's anything we could have done better in that process, but also speak to race direction and see what we can do to improve people getting out of our way in qualifying.
And what have the team done since Mexico to improve since those learnings?
Well, a huge amount of work, and I think you've seen that in the performance we've had in practice this morning. So we have a fast car, we've seen that. You know, Mitch and Sam were second and third fastest on their 220s this morning. It's down to traffic, and that's something we need to get on top of, both us and the FIA in terms of how we manage that.
All right, well, thanks very much for speaking to us.
And there's Sebastian Buemi heading back out to the back of the garage, but because they well, here we go. Sam Bird then, we're on board with him here, and he's trying to get himself a gap at the Marconi hairpin. Oh, and then Buemi chucks it up the inside. Well, no, that's Andretti, and interesting. Well, that's what happened to Sam Bird.
That would explain why he didn't make it to the checker flag in time. He's furious. So, but I think this might have happened earlier.
Well, that's yeah, because I don't know if this is a Buemi reversal where Buemi got the wrong guy in Montreal all those years ago. But and with the glove slap, I wonder. You know, he's not through to the duels, so he can't challenge him to a duel with the glove slap.
But, you know, he got held up earlier, if you remember. In one of his earlier laps, he got held up on a lap.
Yeah.
Traffic. Maybe that was Buemi.
Yeah, agreed.
That's the closest I've seen James Barclay to being upset and actually showing how... I'm trying to think of a nice word to put it here. Just showing how upset he was. So he clearly, yeah, he feels that they were hard done by. And he's right. With this qualifying format, you can't have cars interfering with other cars' laps. It's not right.
But... Well, we'll move on to qualifying group. I think there's a big discussion to be had about this, and hopefully we'll do it after qualifying with Vernon and everyone, because the traffic is still your...
If you're on a slow lap, you need to get the heck out of the way of the guy that's on a qualifying lap.
Okay, so I agree with that, but in the gapping at the end, that's, I think, a different conversation. And that's ultimately what cost them getting the lap in at the end. Qualifying Group B, this is Nick Cassidy. His teammate Robin Frijns is through to the duels, and we'll see what Cassidy can do. He was on pole position here last year, but he missed a lot of running in free practice 1 because of a drive shaft problem, and we'll see what he can do to try and advance through. Also in this group, you've got second place in the championship, Nyck de Vries. You've got fourth place in the championship, Andre Lotterer. You've got Jean-Eric Vergne, who was quickest in free practice earlier on. We've got a lot of big hitters out there.
I have to say, Cassidy's car, the Envision car, looks like it's got fantastic balance so far. Particularly as it went through turn 3, it just looked as close to on rails as I've seen a Formula E car. So let's see if he's keeping up the momentum too.
His teammate Robin Frijns is through to the duels, and he's been through now in every single qualifying session, he's made it through to the duels. Only de Vries and Lotterer can match him, and they are both out in this session, so we'll see what unfolds there. Riding with Cassidy down towards this left-hander. The pole he took last year was in difficult, slippery, changing conditions. And he had another pole later in the year, didn't he? In, oh my goodness, my brain has gone blank.
I've hit my head a lot of,
yeah,
a lot
I know.
of times.
What was his second pole? Everyone at home is screaming at the TV screen. Anyway, here he goes.
This is a fantastic lap so far, early in the session. But let's see where it puts him. De Vries on a mighty lap as well. Cassidy, 140.8 so far. Here comes Lucas de Vries as he comes to the end of the lap. That's turn 18, one corner to go.
New York City was Cassidy's other pole position. Here comes de Vries over the line, and he goes second, but only 15 thousandths slower than Cassidy.
Andre Lotterer looking for his first win in Formula E. Still, which is just the most bizarre statistic. Lotterer third quickest so far, right in there.
300 separating the top three. De Vries has actually gone 600ths up. There goes Antonio Giovinazzi. He goes into fourth place. Sergio Sede Camera in the Dragon comes out across the line, and he goes into seventh place, slower by 4/10 than his teammate Giovinazzi. Gunter comes through and goes seventh quickest. Roland goes fastest in the Mahindra. A 1 minute 40.748. One of the qualifiers of last year. One of the qualifiers in the championship, to be honest, but in particular here, he looked set for pole position until he clipped the wall. He looked set for a win until he got a penalty for power overuse. But de Vries, Vergne and de Costa are all going quicker than Roland 2/3 of the way around the lap. We're on board with de Vries. Vergne is smashing it, but we're on board with de Vries as he comes into the final turn.
Sets up for the exit, back to the throttle. Let's see where it puts him. Third.
Third, yeah.
Rising.
Here's Jean-Eric Vergne, though, 3/10 up after the middle sector. He's into Piazza JFK. De Costa will be first across the line in the other DS Techeetah. He goes fastest, a 1 minute 40.702. Jean-Eric Vergne goes 3/10 quicker. He's out-qualified De Costa every race so far this season. I think James Rossiter just said no way as he came across the line. I think he was surprised at the difference.
He looks confused.
Them. Yeah.
James, if anybody's going to know, you're going to know. You've got the data. That was a fantastic lap, though, from Jean-Eric Vergne.
Gunter is currently 10th quickest for Nissan Edams, but he hasn't actually set a lap yet, Gunter. I think he did a out lap and then a prep lap. He's 3/10 down after the middle sector, so he's sort of within reach of the top four. It'll have to be a very good final sector to make it, Max Gunter. Here he comes now, into the left-hander, out across the line at 19. And he goes 8th, 6/10 adrift. In the end, ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi and Sergio Sede Camera, and Oliver Turvey, who's coming out of the line now. Turvey goes ahead of both Dragons. So that is, in Neo terms, moderately positive. I don't think they have out-qualified the Dragons so far this season, Turvey and Tictum. Turvey's best qualifying was 17th on the grid in the second race in Diriyah. Said, I think they out-qualified him there, actually, in the second race in Diriyah.
Yeah, and Oliver Turvey said that the Neo team changed a lot of stuff between Mexico and now, just trying to get some answers. And he felt moderately positive about qualifying and the race this afternoon.
De Vries, then second place man in the championship, 5th at the moment as he returns to the pit lane. Into the left-hander, and then past the garages on the left, and then he'll have to go up here and do a very tight U-turn to make his way back around to Mercedes, who are at the far end of the pit lane, having won the championship, both the team's championship and the drivers' championship last year.
This shows you why you do not want to drive through in the race this afternoon or tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
God, it would just absolutely kill any chance you had of a result.
Into the pits comes De Vries. So, 4 minutes to go. Everybody is in the pits, bar Gunter and Turvey, so they are all doing a tyre change with 4 minutes left on the clock, which is similar to what some of the other teams did, but dissimilar in other ways as well, because some drivers stayed out for the whole session. Cassidy has just left the pits. He's going to be the first driver out on circuit.
He needs to be careful now, though, that he doesn't start his hot lap just as everybody else is leaving the pits. We saw that in the first group. It's so important to almost be in the same rhythm as the rest of the grid. You all sort of leave and try and get a gap. But if you're pushing on your push lap, everybody else is out trying to put heat in the tyres. His chances of getting held up are greatly increased.
So at the moment, Vergne, de Costa, Rowland and Cassidy would be the 4 drivers advancing through to the duels.
Great job from Oliver Rowland, because he had the most adventurous morning.
Yeah, that's very true. He had a crash with Jean-Eric Vergne in free practice 1. He had a few snaps coming up into turn 7. Nearly hit the wall on one occasion, went into the runoff area and then looped back around on another occasion. Had a almost spin coming out of turn 10. The list is endless. There's Andre Lotterer. He has had a pole position before, took Porsche's first pole position in Mexico City a couple of years ago. Also had a pole for DS Techeetah. Almost looked set for a pole in Santiago season 4 till he put it in the wall in Super Pole. De Costa getting ready to go out.
This is the hard bit though, because you've got to, you know, that a lot of these guys, the capability is in the car, but you've got to do the lap. You've got to be on the limit, not below the limit, not above the limit. And we've seen there's no margin for error in this circuit at all.
So, de Costa, Rowland are the 2 drivers still in the pit lane. Gunter is just leaving the pit lane now. De Costa leaves it now as well. So everybody out on circuit with 2 minutes and 11 seconds to go. So those drivers leaving now have only got time for a pretty quick prep lap, to be honest with you, because they've got 2 minutes left and it's a 1 minute 40 lap, so they've got to get on it. Here comes Cassidy getting on it down the hill towards turn 3 at Luna Park. I don't think he is on it. I think he's doing a prep lap here, Nick Cassidy. I might be wrong, but he just didn't really look on the edge.
I would say he's not on it, Jack. If he is, that car's stuck to the circuit, or he's going very slow.
Nah, he's chilled.
Yeah,
he's chilled. So Cassidy doing an extra prep lap compared to some of the other drivers. As he makes his way up the hill.
This is the calm before the storm, isn't it? It's about to get very, very busy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just conserving my energy.
So somebody's just left turn 7, so there is some traffic ahead of him, so he's probably going to maybe back off just a fraction to make sure he's got that gap, so when he is on his push lap, I mean, everybody's got to go on this next lap. It's got to be the push, otherwise they're not going to make it round.
So, but the traffic ahead will be on a hot lap next time around, so I don't think it's too stressful really for Nick Cassidy.
But I hate to say it is one of the Neos, so you don't, you know, if you're a couple of seconds a lap quicker, it's going to get, and also it annoys your sight lines.
Yeah, but I think he's also comfortably going to make it through, so I think he will be all right. So that means that the quickest, or the first driver on a quick lap will be here, Nyck de Vries. He will come through the first sector in a moment as he climbs the hill in the Mercedes. He's a 10th up on Jean-Eric Vergne. Good first sector for the Mercedes EQ driver. Everybody now is starting their final flying laps. They've got to get into the top 4 to get into the qualifying duels. Oh, big lockup from de Vries.
Both wheels locked up, but I think it's cost him time, but he made it.
Got it stopped somehow.
But that's going to have cost him time, Jack.
Certainly is. De Costa gets across the line, Turvey gets across the line, so everybody's okay. Everybody's on a lap. Good first sector from Lotterer.
Look at
He's
Vergne's
400
first
up.
sector.
Whoa, Jean-Eric Vergne, a quarter of a second up. Ian James watching the action in the bottom right. De Vries into the chicane. Looked a little bit kind of clunky and bumpy.
It didn't flow, did it?
He's a 10th down after the middle sector here, Nyck de Vries, which would still be enough at the moment to put him in the top 4, but everybody else is improving. Lotterer, de Grassi, de Costa and Vergne all finding time. Nyck de Vries has been in the duels every race so far this season. The reigning champion, second in the championship, has got big pressure now in this final sector to try and put himself into the top 4.
And Vergne continues to extend his advantage over 3 tenths, almost 4 tenths now through the first 2 sectors.
Nyck de Vries across the line. It's second for the time being. There's a yellow flag out there at turn 10 which could affect some people. Here comes Andre Lotterer in the Porsche. Bouncing over the curbs. Through the left-hander of 19. Can Lotterer get ahead of de Vries? Yes, he can. He goes quickest. So de Costa is now on the bubble. De Vries is there in 3rd place, but I think everybody else has been caught out by a yellow flag because no one's improving in the middle sector. Here comes Jean-Eric Vergne. He's still improving, and he goes to the top of the times. A 1 minute 40.309. De Vries comes home 6th. I think De Vries is going to get away with this one. We're with Costa now. No one else is improving. Everybody else has had to back off. Costa through the final turn. Both the Estachitas, as they were in Mexico City, are going to be through to the duels.
Costa quickest.
He gets ahead of Jean-Eric Vergne right at the end. Sete Camera across the line into 10th place. Sete Camera was not doing badly. He's obviously made a mistake in the final sector because he could have got up into the top 4, but whoever, it was Roland. So Roland's been off at turn 10. That's where he had his slide earlier on this morning.
Yes, it
so
is.
I wonder if he's done exactly the same, because Roland, whatever he did in the second sector, ruined everybody else's lap. So 6th for De Vries. So it'll be row 7 for Cassidy, row 8 for Gunter. Here we go then. This is what really scuppered everybody.
Yeah,
there he goes,
yeah.
identical.
And he lost it so early.
And then he couldn't get it back around, and Gunter is obviously ruined. He does quite well to pull off the circuit. That's interesting. But I wonder if the yellow flags were out for longer or something, but
so
round
he
he
missed
goes.
the corner. He actually was a bit wide as he turned in as well, so he missed the apex, probably got in the dusty part of the track, and it just round the back came, and that was all she wrote.
I wonder how long the yellow flag was. That's an interesting, because he sort of did well to pull off the circuit, but you wonder if the yellow flag's still out, everybody still has to back off, because no one improved in that middle sector. Here's a replay of Nyck Cassidy coming up to whoa, Nyck!
Cat-like reactions from Nyck Cassidy in the Envision. Well done, Nyck, keeping that thing out of the wall.
The thing that surprised me with these, as Giovinazzi makes his way back to the pits, is they're all trying to avoid the bump by going in different places, and then they find bigger bumps.
I think the only way to avoid that bump is to use a different part of it. Like, yeah, avoid turn 7 altogether.
So, Costa, Vergne, Lotterer and De Vries through to the duels. Lotterer and De Vries keep up their record of making it through every time to the duels. Roland 5th, De Vries 6th, Cassidy, Gunter, Turvey, Sete Camera and Giovinazzi, the 11 drivers. So we move on now to the duels in a couple of moments' time. Right, we're going to head back down to Jaguar, and Radzi has found Sam Bird. Radzi?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. You were visually frustrated after that, it's safe to say. What happened from your end?
So I'd just gone purple in Sector 1, and unfortunately I came across a car that wasn't using its mirrors going up through Sector 2. There's plenty of room to get out of the way, but this driver didn't. Very frustrating when that happens, because you only get a couple of chances at this, and when people don't get out the way, yeah, it makes it very difficult. So that was my quali kind of ended with our strategy, and look, we've got a quick car, and look ahead for the race.
And we saw how quick it was in free practice. You were going really well in that.
Yeah, we seem quick. That's the disappointing thing. When you go purple in one sector, which is the quickest of all, you want to be able to finish the lap, and I wasn't given that opportunity on 2 out of my 3 laps today. So very frustrating, but look, race is long, anything can happen.
Well, the good news is the race is just around the corner. All the rest of luck. Thanks for your time, mate.
Thank you.
So, interesting stuff there from Sam Bird. So, that look, we're presuming it was Buemi because he was the one he glove slapped, but he doesn't seem too frustrated with not getting another lap in at the end. It seems to be that was his lap that he was on, and that's the frustration there. And obviously that's what we were talking about earlier. That's where it's different between not getting a lap in at the end. Here comes Scott Elkins, the race director.
Pit exit light, not the repeater. I need you guys to go around the corner and queue up at the actual pit exit light, just to be clear.
So that was a message from Scott Elkins, letting everyone know where to park in the pits before a duel. So you park at the pit exit light, not at the repeater light. So just a little confirmation there. So Turvey broke down seemingly on his way back to because he finished qualifying. He out-qualified both of the Dragons, yeah. But he's stopped on the way back to the pits.
So I know Sam Bird is frustrated. This would be a great opportunity for a Sam Bird fight back today from the middle of the grid.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. So there's Pascal Wehrlein getting ready to head out on circuit. The first duel then will be de Vries versus Dennis. There's Sergio Sede Camera making his way back to the Dragon garage.
I think for Seti Camera, it's what could have been there.
Yeah.
The first two sectors were fantastic, and it's not quite sure what went wrong.
It would have been unbelievable, to be honest with you. So this is how we're going to do the qualifying duels. Nyck de Vries against Jake Dennis will be the quarterfinal. Lotterer versus Frijns. Vandoorne versus Vergne. Wehrlein versus Costa. The winners go through to the semis, the winners go through to the finals, the winner takes pole position. And what I love about these duels, I can't call any of them. They're all just, it would be a shock if any of those drivers are knocked out in the quarterfinals. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be like, oh, wow, that's tough.
They're all there on merit.
Yeah.
It's too close to call. Yeah.
Okay, but any of those drivers could take pole.
Yeah.
No trouble.
I'm just looking through. Yeah, I unfortunately agree with you.
Good effort from Costa right at the end there, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
Vergne looked like he had the measure of everybody, but Costa kind of found a bit of speed right at the end.
And did Costa get held up in that yellow or not? That's the question. I'm not sure if he got held up.
No, I think he was
Rollins.
ahead of it. I think he was ahead of it.
Yeah, mighty lap.
Yeah.
The Estachita's ominously strong.
Here's the Coliseo Quadrato, built in the late 1930s for the 1942 World Fair. So, the first duel, Nyck de Vries versus Jake Dennis.
Everything comes down to one qualifying lap. There's a huge pressure, so we focus on corner by corner.
My favourite thing about the duel is really the head-to-head competition, you know, not knowing what the other driver is doing during the lap. So you don't know if he's made a mistake or he's on the best lap of his life. You never know.
And Jake Dennis is now on his out lap. He was second on the grid in the opening race of the season in Diriyah, Jake Dennis. 9th and 15th, hasn't been in the duels since, but here he is now in the quarterfinal against the reigning champion, Nyck de Vries.
Yeah, good to see the Andretti guys fight back after a tough Mexico City. The car just was not handling at all from the very first lap we saw on screen, so great to see Jake Dennis back up and in the duels.
So, Dennis is out on circuit, de Vries out on circuit as well. They don't go directly head-to-head, they are staggered apart on the circuit, but they're basically on the track at the same time, and it's all down to one lap. It's just an out lap, and then we go for it. So they'll turn it up to full power as well, because Dario, they haven't run at full power for a couple of hours now.
Yeah, since this morning, and they got their sort of their sight line in and did multiple laps at 220 kilowatts in the group stages of qualifying. Now you've got to put a lot of more power into the car. The straights are shorter, you've got to brake heavily at the end of the straights. Completely different rhythm to get into as a driver. So it's Formula E have not made it easy on the drivers, which is exactly what we want.
Right, here comes Nyck de Vries then. He's going to be the first driver across the line. The timing beam is there, and he starts his flying lap now, coming down the hill in towards turn 3 at Luna Park, then out onto the Via della Trafontane.
I mean, you can see the cars are visually quicker. You arrive at turn 3 so much quicker than you did at 220 kilowatts. Looking for the different braking point than you had.
Dennis starts his lap now, coming down towards turn 3. And you can see the gap between them. De Vries 200ths ahead at the moment as Dennis comes in to the first left-hander on the circuit, the first sort of proper corner. And then we'll get the next split in a moment's time. De Vries now climbing the hill. Oh, look at that. Dennis is ahead by 1,000th of a second at the moment. Still a long way to go. De Vries is about halfway around the lap now, coming past the Coliseo Quadrato, and then he'll come down towards the chicane in a moment, and he's extending his advantage a bit over Jake Dennis. It's now over 1/10 of a second. It's now almost 3/10 of a second, so maybe a scruffy left-hander at turn 4 for Dennis, and that's compromised him all the way up the hill.
You can hear the Andretti car sliding across the surface more. He just doesn't have the grip in the tyre right now that the Mercedes of Nyck de Vries has.
Here comes de Vries down into the Marconi hairpin. Looked like he was sending it in quite deep. Dennis takes a bit of time out of de Vries. He's catching him a little bit. The gap comes down to 0.2 of a second. Oh, I thought he'd locked up there. He was so on the limit.
Oh, it sounded like he did overdo the entry to turn 16.
Comes into the final corner now, Nyck de Vries. He will set the benchmark time as he comes across the line. And it is a 1 minute 38.980. Dennis is still just over 0.2 of a second away.
Yeah, Dennis has lost a little bit. That's a good lap from Nyck de Vries when you compare it to this morning. Yeah, the back end of the Andretti sliding around, Jack.
This looks like it's going to be enough for de Vries. Here he comes across the line. The gap goes up to 0.3 and it finishes at 0.3 of a second. So Nyck de Vries advances through to the semi-finals. And Dennis does a 39.288 because that lap time that Dennis sets will define where he starts on the grid. So Nyck de Vries is through to the semi-finals, and that is the third time this season in 4 races that he's made it through to the semis. Very impressive.
That was a good lap.
Yeah.
Again, when you compare it to this morning and Jean-Eric Vergne's quick lap of a 39.0.
Yeah, very true. So, de Vries is through. Next quarter-final duel, Andre Lotterer in the Tag Heuer Porsche up against Robin Frijns for Envision Racing in quarter-final number 2. Florian Modlinger there, the boss of the Porsche team, as Lotterer looks for another pole position. Hasn't started on the front row yet so far this season. He's been through the duels. He's been in the duels every race so far, never made it through to the final. He's been through to the semi-final on 2 of the 3 occasions.
I've got a feeling about Lotterer today.
What's your feeling?
I think today could be the day for that first Formula E win. You know, the Porsche guys are on a high, clearly, and he loves this track. Time will tell.
Right, we are on a split screen here. They aren't right together on the circuit, but we've slowed one of them down, so we're watching them as close as we can get in real time, right together. And at the moment, Lotterer has the advantage by 0.006 of a second between them. Here they come into the left-hander now and climbing the hill.
A massive amount. Oh, it's up to 700s now. Lotterer behind Robin Frijns, but Lotterer's catching him up the hill.
Just 500s between them. They're coming up now towards the next big left-hander, which is turn 7. Mind the bumps here.
Frijns gets it stopped well. He's pulled away again from Lotterer a little bit. Let's see if Lotterer can make some time up and through this final sector of the lap.
Frijns now almost a 10th up on Andre Lotterer. Through the right-hander at the Colosseo Quadrato. Then left, then right again.
A bit scrappy from Lotterer.
Down towards the chicane. Frijns is looking neat and tidy. Look at that. Frijns has pulled out such a big advantage. Look how much earlier it is. He is leaving the chicane. Lotterer slides out towards the exit. Frijns' advantage is almost 0.4 of a second here.
Lotterer jumped the chicane curb a little bit, trying to cut the angle down. Seemed to work a little bit, but the gap still 3.5 tenths. Frijns lost the rear a little bit into the Marconi hairpin at turn 15.
But the advantage is still extending. You'll see how much earlier Frijns hits the curb on the right there now. Compared to Lotterer, it's 0.7 of a second. Lotterer did miss a bit of running at the end of free practice earlier on after hitting the wall. He did well to get through to the duels, but he's not going to be getting through to the semi-finals. Frijns crosses the line and does a 1 minute 38.764. That's actually quite a huge lap from Robin Frijns, and he advances into the semi-finals.
A mighty lap from Robin Frijns there with the Audi powertrain in the Envision car.
That lap time from Lotterer, 0.7 slower than Frijns, but only 0.2 slower than Jake Dennis. So the lap itself was all right, but Frijns was just hooked up. Next up, Stoffel Vandoorne for Mercedes EQ, facing Jean-Eric Vergne for DS Techeetah. Quarter-final number 3 here in Rome. Ian James, team principal at Mercedes EQ. James Rossiter, advisor at DS Techeetah. Now, so far this season, Jean-Eric Vergne has made it through to the semi-finals last time out in Mexico, where he finished 4th. Stoffel Vandoorne was on pole position for the opening race of the season, but he hasn't made the semi-finals since then. So here comes Vergne, past the Palazzo dei Congressi, and up into the final corner at turn 19, and out over the line. So here they come, down the hill. And we're going split screen again, down to the bottom. The left-hander at turn 3, now towards turn 4. Vandoorne fractionally ahead after the first corner. Through the left-hander and climbing the hill. Vandoorne still fractionally ahead. There's nothing in this one at the moment.
Oh, Vandoorne just pulling away just a fraction, got a better exit out of 4, and that's going to carry it all the way up the steep hill through turn 6. Now watch the braking zone in 7, even hear it as it hits the ground. Both cars got it stopped well.
400ths between them now. It's barely moving, this gap.
Oh, no, but Vergne missed the apex of turn 8. They just locked to front right at the last moment. Does Vandoorne take advantage?
Still barely anything separating them. They're coming down towards the chicane now, and Vandoorne does take advantage. He's 0.2 of a second now ahead of Jean-Eric Vergne.
Vergne was good through the chicane. Let's see if he can start clawing the gap back a little bit. The pace of the DS to Cheetah has been fantastic this morning.
They're still right together now as they come down towards the Marconi obelisk. The long left-hander. 1/4 of a second between them at the last split. Now they head in towards the back streets again. The gap grows a little more.
Same thing for Vergne, just didn't rotate, just locked the wheels just as he wanted the car to turn right in the middle of the corner.
Almost 0.3 of a second between them. Into the final corner at 19, and it is Stoffel Vandoorne who's going to be going through by almost half a second, by over half a second. Vandoorne is into the semi-final, and again, both Mercedes EQs are through to the semis. Vergne is eliminated on again, a 39.1, so that's the best losing lap time that we've had so far. And it's going to be good enough for maybe 5th on the grid, but tough times for Vergne after he looked so quick earlier on. The final quarter-final duel, Pascal Wehrlein in the Tag Heuer Porsche up against Antonio Felix da Costa in the DS to Cheetah. Here is Wehrlein. We're going to be watching these two as they go around, not in split screen on this one.
The Wehrlein hasn't started his lap yet. He's just coming through turn 15, so 4 more corners to go, get the temperature in the tyres. He'll take a slightly different line into turn 19 so he can get to the throttle earlier and start his lap with a bit more speed across the start line.
Da Costa has never made it through to the semi-finals. He's been in the quarter-finals both of the last 2 races, but yet to make it into the semis yet, whereas Wehrlein was on pole position for the last E-Prix in Mexico City. Here he comes then, down the hill towards turn 1. Pascal Wehrlein first on track.
Good rear grip from the Porsche as he started to turn in, but then possibly understeer through the middle of the corner just a little bit. Couldn't get quite to the throttle as early as he would have liked.
Da Costa has started his lap now. Nothing between them as they start the lap, as you would imagine, as Da Costa comes down to the bottom of the hill, the left-hander of turn 3. Then up towards Ninfeo Park and climbing up the hill once more. Just 1,000th between them in those early stages, but Da Costa has been quick through turn 3, and now he's almost over a 10th up on Wehrlein, but Wehrlein's bringing the gap back down a little bit. Through that left-right, left sequence of corners for Wehrlein. Da Costa is up at turn 7 at Piazza Gandhi, and Da Costa has extended his advantage to 1/4 of a second at the moment.
And obviously Wehrlein doesn't know this. Wehrlein's just pushing as hard as he possibly can, but just not able to extract the lap time. He heard the tyres screeching as he into turn 14, overdid it just a little bit.
Wehrlein's catching, less than 0.2 of a second now. Da Costa bouncing over the curbs.
Did Da Costa overdo the entry into the chicane? The times will tell us in a second.
There was barely anything between them in that middle sector. Wehrlein still catching, less than 0.2 away from Da Costa. He's coming up into the final corner now. Wehrlein out across the line. And he sets a 1:39.3, and I don't think that's going to be enough because the gap is extending to Da Costa. It's over 1/4 of a second.
Da Costa missed the apex on turn 17.
Final corner at turn 19. De Costa to the line. Is he going to make it through to the semis? Yes, he is. Antonio Felix da Costa will face Stoffel Vandoorne in the semi-finals. A 39.363 for Wehrlein.
But Vandoorne was half a second quicker than Da Costa. So a bit of work to do.
So that means that Jean-Eric Vergne will be 5th on the grid for the race tomorrow. Jake Dennis will be 6th on the grid for the race tomorrow. Wehrlein will be 7th. Lotterer will be 8th. That's how it'll pan out. Florian Modlinger. Neither Porsche then getting through into the semi-finals. Not an outright disaster. They're still up there in the mix, but when you come from a 1-2 in the last race, a little frustrating, little disappointing.
Little surprising, I would say. Yeah, absolutely right.
So quarterfinals completed. Nyck de Vries, Robin Frijns, Stoffel Vandoorne and Antonio Felix da Costa are advancing through to the semi-finals. De Vries versus Frijns, the all-Dutch battle, and then da Costa versus Vandoorne. 2 of those will be through to the final and the battle for pole position. So, we are getting ready for the semi-finals. Let's go down and check in with Radzi.
Well, thanks, Jack. I'm joined by Jake Dennis here. Jake, such a strong performance in the group qualification. What happened in the quarters from your end?
Yeah, just on the outlap, I immediately felt that the tyre wasn't in the correct window. I wasn't too sure if it was too cold, too hot. On the pressures, it was reading too cold, but the feeling I had was that the tyre was sort of sliding around too much. And then as soon as I started the push lap, I went into sector 1 and I just had nothing. So, yeah, missed the apex of 4. And then generally sector 2 and sector 3, we've been really strong. And even then, we struggled quite a lot. But nevertheless, I think we're starting 6th on the grid. The lap was clean, wasn't great, obviously. But, yeah, I think we made a really good step forward from Mexico, where we really struggled. And here we bounced back and, yeah, obviously was on pole in the group and then 6th overall.
A lot of what you've spoken about is feeling. How important is instinct when it comes to driving for yourself?
Yeah, so the instincts on the 220, like push running, is actually not too bad because you get quite a few like attempts, so you can actually like fine tune things. But when you just jump straight on the 250, it's sort of just, it's quite raw. You just send it and hope for the best, really. And yeah, you have no real references because it's the first real time you've, gave it like a proper quali lap. So it's a lot of instincts on the 250 running, but that's probably the most enjoyable part of Formula E, though.
And it's why we love watching you. Thanks for your time, Jake, and we'll see you 6th on the grid. As for us now, we can speak to Andre Lotterer, a man with so much experience. In fact, a man who's made the duels in every single race so far this season. How was it in the quarterfinals for you, sir?
Yeah, it was a tough one due to my crash in quali. No, in free practice, sorry. So I couldn't really have a run in 250, but in general, I was happy to be in the duels again. But then on top of that, I was in the second group and starting very soon in the duels, and that's a disadvantage here, clearly, with the tire temperatures. So in Riyadh it would have been an advantage. So this is where you see a bit where the luck in these groups play a bit of a role. So yeah, the lap was all right, little mistake, turn 13, but I was not 7/10.
And how do you mentally deal with that, knowing that there are sort of things out of your control?
Well, first of all, I had to focus myself after the crash to get into the duels, and then I made it, and then yeah, I just tried my best with what I had, and that's it. So I mean, it's not a bad starting position, so you can aim for points and go to the front, hopefully.
Thanks for your time, Andre. See you in the race.
So great to hear from Andre Lotterer then, who will be starting 8th on the grid for the race tomorrow, which after that crash in free practice, not a bad result at all. I'm saying it's good. He's just giving me eyes as he walked past on the way out. But soon we will be getting underway with the semi-finals. Right. Semi-final time for round 4 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship, the Rome E-Prix. Nyck de Vries versus Robin Frijns coming up, and Da Costa versus Vandoorne will be the second semi-final, and the winners will go through to the final and then the battle for pole position. De Vries beat Dennis on the way through, Frijns beat Lotterer, Semi-final one then. Nyck de Vries for Mercedes EQ up against Robin Frijns for Envision Racing.
I'd like to think I'm quite precise.
I like the duels because you're just facing one guy which you want to beat so badly, and the track is completely for yourself.
And there they are. Frijns lined up behind de Vries as they get ready to head out onto the circuit. Qualifying-wise so far this season, de Vries has 1 pole position. This is his 3rd semi-final appearance. Both of these have been in the duels in every session so far, and Robin Frijns has a best result of 3rd, so he's never made it through to the final. Robin Frijns, he will be hoping today will be the day, and quite surprising, really, that Frijns is here. He's waiting for the green light for him to go out, but because they didn't really look anywhere in free practice, but Frijns has managed to...
In fact, I think you actually said they're nowhere after free practice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 2/10 quicker nearly than Nyck de Vries in the quarter-final. So, I mean, right now, Frijns is the guy you're expecting to make it happen. But again, the tyres have now done 1 heat cycle in the quarter-final. Will the cars handle differently in the semi-final? It's these small details that can make the difference between getting into the final, getting on pole position or not.
De Vries in the Mercedes, 2nd place in the championship, and with championship leader Eduardo Mortara set to start 11th or 12th on the grid. This is a big opportunity for him, but also an opportunity for Robin Frijns to get some points on the board. He's down in 9th place, has had a podium this season with a 2nd position in the 2nd race in Diriyah, but hasn't scored big points subsequently or previously. The race is later on. I think I said the race tomorrow.
There's a race tomorrow too.
There is a race tomorrow, exactly, but there's also a race later on. Frijns comes through the chicane, and we're just going to be watching them normally on this one. We won't be splitting the screen. As de Vries now comes into the back sequence of corners up to the Piazza JFK, loops around that.
That's turn 17, 18 now. Again, that wide line into 19 to maximise acceleration as he crosses the timing line now.
So de Vries starts his lap. We're about to go double Dutch in the semi-final of the 4th round of the championship. De Vries down into turn 3.
You see the rear of the car walking around as he brakes steeply downhill into 3, managed to keep it pointed in the right direction though.
Frijns starts his lap now. The first timing beam is sort of here, so that's why they're always so close right at the start, because they've only just come across the line. It's always interesting that you can gain sort of 100th or 2 at that point though, as we go on board with de Vries now. Up the hill, towards the left-hander of turn 7. Hits the bumps big time.
Bumps hard, and the wheels are off the ground when you hear that noise.
Frijns is now 9 thousandths up.
Oh, de Vries now a 10th up.
So he was very, very quick at the top of the hill. Here's Robin Frijns now. He's coming up towards, so it would have been the bottom of the hill that de Vries was quick. The car wiggling a little from left to right, and Frijns has been strong on the climb up towards Piazza Gandhi.
Yeah, that was that mighty braking zone as we see de Vries through the 12 and 13 chicane. Got through there just.
Neat and tidy from de Vries, isn't it? He comes down now into the Marconi hairpin, but it's not necessarily quick because Frijns is a 10th up on the Mercedes driver.
And you can hear it again, Jack, slide. The front slid through the middle of the turn 15, the rear slid coming off the corner for the Mercedes. Not what Nyck de Vries needs right now, especially being a 10th and a half down.
We'll get another split in a moment to see whether the gap has extended or decreased. Here comes Nyck de Vries across the line now, and his benchmark time is going to be a 38.949. He's closing the gap a little bit on Frijns. Frijns has the advantage, but only by 0.08 of a second. A neat and tidy final few corners, and Frijns might be in for the final for the first time this season. Frijns across the line, looks like he's going to do it, and he does. Robin Frijns into the final and books himself a place on the front row of the grid.
Oh. Oh.
They seem very happy, don't they, there at Envision?
Rightly so.
So Frijns through, de Vries out, so he will be third or fourth on the grid. Still second row with Lotterer so far down is an advantage. Semi-final 2. Antonio Felix da Costa in the DS Techeetah up against Stoffel Vandoorne in the Mercedes EQ. Vandoorne has had a pole position this season. Da Costa, on the other hand, has not been in the semi-finals before, so he's in his first semi-final appearance, so he will be having his best qualifying performance of the season so far.
Yeah, da Costa's not had his best qualifying early in this season, the first 3 rounds, so nice to see him getting back into the semi-final. Let's see if he can go on better, get into the final. I have to say, I was a bit surprised that Nyck de Vries looked very strong through this last series of corners. So I was surprised that he managed to, that Robin Frijns managed to stay ahead in the last semi-final.
Yeah. Right, we've split screen this one. Vandoorne marginally ahead as we come down the hill into the left-hander of turn 3. Now out towards 4. We'll get another look at the times just after this left-hander.
Missed the apex a little bit, Stoffel Vandoorne, but he managed to get it just a bit later than he might have wanted.
And he's still got the advantage now by 0.04 of a second. Stoffel Vandoorne ahead, up towards turn 7.
This is the next critical part, over these big bumps and then braking for 7. Big bravery by both drivers. Oh, da Costa caught him on the way into 7. Both neat through 8. Now this is a section you've got to throw the speed through. 9, 10, straight into 11, and then the short straight, the chicane of turn 12. A very bumpy straight, you'll see.
There's 0.04 between them, but not anymore. Vandoorne extends it to 2/10. Go, he took so much curb.
Yeah, he did. He carried a lot of speed on the way in, Jack, but lost on the way out. Let's see how that all works out for him when we see the next split.
Really attacked it aggressively at the chicane, Vandoorne. Now they come into the Marconi hairpin. On the power again. Is da Costa closing in? He's got ahead. He's swung it around from 2/10 down. Da Costa's 300s up.
The ebb and flow of this lap is incredible.
Through the final corner, turn 19, it's going to be so close. Vandoorne's fractionally ahead, and Vandoorne does it by 100th of a second. Stoffel Vandoorne through to the final.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff by both drivers.
But that was a close one. Da Costa did a 38.986, which is 0.04 slower than de Vries. So I think that'll be 4th on the grid for da Costa, 3rd on the grid for Nyck de Vries. And then it'll be Frijns versus Vandoorne in the final. Vandoorne, he had it. Not comfortably, but he had it under control, and then he just took so much curb at the chicane.
Yeah, and you know, some cars work better at different parts of the track, and that's what we're seeing here with the DS Techeetah against the Mercedes. One particular corner, the cars will be set up, the driver's technique will work better, and we saw the result, 100th of a second difference.
One more to go, says Ian James to some of the big bosses at Mercedes that are here this weekend at the back of the garage. Not quite a Mercedes head-to-head in the final, but it's Frijns for the Envision team up against Stoffel Vandoorne in the final. They've got to come back and they'll come into the pit, so we've got a few minutes to go before that final gets underway. As Vandoorne looks for his 2nd pole of the season, Frijns looks for his 1st pole and only his 2nd pole in Formula E. Took him, I can't remember how many races it took him to get his 1st pole. It was something like 37 or something like that before he got pole position in Diriyah at the start of season 6. Stoffel Vandoorne has had a lot of pole positions in his Formula E career. I think he's looking for his 7th, Stoffel Vandoorne. Yes, he's got 6 pole positions in his career so far in 42 races, which is fairly remarkable. And he only joined the championship in season 4 in a fairly uncompetitive, no, season 5, wasn't it, in a fairly uncompetitive HWA.
Or when they were the customer team, yes.
Yeah, and then Mercedes joined season 6, and since then he's got 6 pole positions. So this is where we're at with the ladder. De Vries beat Dennis, Frijns beat Lotterer, Vandoorne beat Vergne, de Costa beat Wehrlein. Then Frijns beat De Vries in the semi-finals, Vandoorne beat de Costa in the semi-finals. And the final will be Stoffel Vandoorne versus Robin Frijns for pole position for round 4 of the championship. So, we are going to have a look back at that lap from Stoffel Vandoorne because well, most of it was very good, Dario. This is on board with him. This is what gets you through to the final.
Yeah, and watch his positioning. Bit of wheel spin out of turn 1. Turn 2 is really about positioning for 3 early on the brakes, gently on the brakes. Got back to the throttle very nicely at the apex. And watch how late his apex is here in turn 4. As he looks for the smoothest part of the circuit to brake on. Well, he just locked up over the bump as he started to turn into the apex. Lovely though, up the hill through turn 5. No lifting through 6, through the drop as the side street comes out and intersects with the track. Big bump. You see the bump there. This is a part that Frijns caught him a little bit. But through turn 8. Oh, a bit of oversteer as he turned into 8. Now this is the next bit. This is through 9, 10, 11. He managed to flow some good speed, but it was through the almost hit the wall in 10. Now watch what he does here.
This is the big bit on the left-hand side.
Yeah, watch how much curb he runs and watch how much speed he runs into the corner. And he's a bit offline, so where he should have been back to the throttle at the apex, he was actually recovering and trying not to hit the wall. And now you're thinking, have I blown it? You've got to focus. You can't try and overdo it now because you've made a mistake earlier in the lap. The tyre screeching as it loses grip over those different surfaces in turn 15. Again, now you've got to flow the speed through 16. Ah, but not good through 16 again. Lost the front end.
He said on the radio afterwards he was really struggling with the tyres in the final sector.
Yeah, and again, easy for me to say all that, but as he crosses the line, now, and that gets him into the final.
Yeah, well, Radzi is now with his teammate.
I'm delighted to be joined by Nyck de Vries, and I'm delighted to be joined by Nyck de Vries. Nick, a very close semi-final, just 1/10 of a second in it in the end. It looked like a real doozy.
Yeah, it was very close. Also between obviously Stoff's and Antonio's or run, because I think we've all pretty much did the same lap time. But I think Robin was just a bit quicker, so yeah, he deserved it. Good session for us. Hopefully, yeah, Stoff can finish the job, but good start of the weekend.
Thanks very much for your time, mate. Look forward to seeing you in the race.
Thank you.
On the second row, it's all to do for the man, and can his teammate possibly go one better?
Well, he's got that opportunity, hasn't he, with a final face-off against Robin Frijns, where he will be facing this man, Stoffel Vandoorne, in the final. So this is where we're at. One more duel to come. Robin Frijns against Stoffel Vandoorne for pole position in the 4th round of the season, and points on the board as well. 3 points for taking pole position. Would that actually gain any of them any places? Yeah, Frijns would actually go 5, 6, 7. Frijns would go up to 6th in the championship if he scores pole. So that's how crucial it can be. Stoffel Vandoorne for Mercedes EQ up against Robin Frijns for Envision Vergne Racing.
You almost got away with that, Jack.
Yeah, exactly. Vandoorne versus Frijns. Here we go.
I'm fast because I'm in the zone, I'm focused, and I'm talented.
I like qualifying because it's so important to put everything together in that single lap you're doing.
So those are the two that will be going head-to-head for the final. There's Frans Jung on the left-hand side, the chairman of the board of Envision, alongside Sylvain Filippi, the managing director. And there is Ian James for Mercedes EQ. Deep breaths all around. What I find interesting about this final is everyone gets so hyped for it and excited about it. and I do too, I promise. But they're already on the front row. Like they've had a brilliant session.
What are you talking
it's
about,
all fine.
Nichols?
It's all fine.
It's pole position.
I know. But in the grand scheme of things, they've done an exceptional job. They've got this far.
Oh yeah, second's all right. Yeah,
take second.
Have you met any of these people in pit lane? You know,
this is why I don't get on with any of them.
I've raced with you in the simulator. You don't do second either. It's 3 points as well.
Yeah, this is what we're here for, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Tremendous stuff. So, Vandoorne making his way up the hill. We won't be split screening this one. We'll just be covering it normally.
Well, the drivers are trying to get the feeling into the car. And right now with the tyre temperatures, because again they've run multiple times on these tyres now, so they're trying to get, okay, what do I need? I've got this one lap to get the tyres in. I want them to run for the whole lap. I don't need them to be working perfectly in turn 15 on my warm-up lap. So the drivers have really got to work and use their experience to come up the right warm-up technique for these tyres.
Here comes Frijns. Who are you going for then?
I have no idea. I really have no idea in this one. You know, Nyck de Vries I was expecting him to go through. He Stoffel Vandoorne qualifying machine, but Robin Frijns seems that he's a bit inspired today.
Yeah.
Well, that means basically, I don't know.
So, here we go then. The final about to get underway. It'll be Vandoorne across the line first, and then it'll be Robin Frijns coming through afterwards. Frijns will be chasing Vandoorne, and here comes Stoffel, looking for his 7th Formula E pole position. Onto the brakes into turn 3.
Maybe slightly later on the brakes than he was in the semi-final. See if it pays dividends for him.
Frijns starts his lap now. Vandoorne slightly quicker. Through the downhill, meanders 1 and 2, is Frijns off?
Oh! He collected it, but that might be it right there, that type of mistake. You saw the marks as he locked the rears up.
How much time has disappeared there for Robin Frijns? Only 0.08 of a second. He looked a bit wibbly-wobbly going into turn 4 as well, to be fair.
Is that a technical term, Jack?
Certainly is. All the engineers use it in their debriefs. Frijns is now over a 10th down on Stoffel Vandoorne.
Yeah, you'd say the balance of the envisioned car, the rear's just not underneath him. It's sliding all the time. Stoffel Vandoorne doing a fantastic job, and he's able to really flow the momentum through that section as he now comes up to turns 12 and 13. Doesn't overdo it like he did last time.
Frijns is closing, though. Half a tenth away at the moment. Oh, but Frijns is just sideways all the time.
Maximum attack is absolutely just...
And there we go. At some point it had to go. And now Vandoorne's advantage is almost 0.3 of a second.
You got to say Vandoorne's driving within the grip available, whereas Robin Frijns is just sliding, as you said, everywhere, Jack.
Is this going to be pole position number 7 of the season for Stoffel Vandoorne? Is it going to be pole position number 3 of the season in 4 races for Mercedes EQ? Frijns is still catching. 1/4 of a second between them. Vandoorne has set his benchmark at 1:39.151. Another slide from Frijns.
Mighty last corner, Jack.
Out across the line, and it's pole position for Stoffel Vandoorne and Mercedes EQ.
Well done, mate. Well done. That's pole. Well done.
Stephen Lane on the radio congratulating Stoffel Vandoorne, who secures pole position for the Rome E-Prix. And he was in Group A. In fact, both these drivers were in Group A, so that means that Evans will be 5th on the grid. Mortara will start... sorry, Evans won't be 5th. He'll be 9th on the grid. Mortara will start 11th on the grid. So championship leader will start 11th on the grid.
And Vandoorne moves up to 3rd in the championship.
Yes, very true. Very true indeed. So jumps ahead of Andre Lotterer and Pascal Wehrlein, and is just 6 points now behind his teammate Nyck de Vries. Stoffel Vandoorne, pole position once again. It's kind of 8 poles as well, because he had that pole position in Valencia that was taken away from him due to the wrong tyre barcode being written down. He's a qualifying machine, Vandoorne.
There's a few people in this pit lane who'd like to get rid of those qualifying barcodes. But yeah, fantastic. Another fantastic job from Stoffel. Let's see if he can convert today. He won here last year, one of the races.
And pole position in the other one.
Yeah, pole position, and he was doing very well and got involved in an incident, which at the time I thought was his fault, but in hindsight, I'm not sure it was his fault.
So here comes Stoffel Vandoorne back into the pit lane now. And pulls up in the garage.
Jumps the queue.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you would if you're pole, you get to jump the queue.
Absolutely.
So Mercedes EQ looking quick again.
I think they executed. I think a lot of people have looked quick today. The Jaguar guys clearly have the pace, I think, in the car, but for a lot of reasons that weren't their fault, they didn't get through.
This is how the ladder ends up. Vandoorne beating Frijns. Frijns' lap time actually at 39.5, which was that the slowest lap time of all the duels? I think it was. So that time certainly went away, but they're not going to be quite as quick in the final because of the fact that the tyres are a little bit hotter and a little bit more used up. Antonio Giovinazzi will start at the back of the grid for his home race. Dan Ticktum 21st, Sergio Sede Camara 20th. Askew 19th on the grid, Oliver Turvey in 18th position. Sebastian Buemi struggled and is 17th on the grid, just behind his teammate Max Gunter. Then you've got some of the championship big hitters. Sam Bird down in 13th on the grid for Jaguar TCS Racing. Eduardo Mortara, the championship leader, will start in 11th for Rocket Venturi. Oliver Rowland completes the top 10. Mitch Evans is in 9th spot in the other Jaguar. Then it's the two Porsches, 7th and 8th after being 1 and 2 last time out in Mexico City. Jake Dennis is 6th. The DS Techeetah of Jean-Eric Vergne is 5th, just behind his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa in 4th. Nyck de Vries is 3rd. 2nd on the grid is Robin Frijns, but on pole position for the 7th time in his career, the Mercedes EQ of Stoffel Vandoorne. Interesting grid, and there is Vandoorne. Interesting grid. DS Techeetah will think they can fight, I think, in 4th and 5th on the grid. I think they'll be maybe a little frustrated or disappointed that they couldn't get further towards the front, because they certainly looked like they were stronger at certain points.
I think they do have the pace, Jag, absolutely. Yeah. But the Jaguar guys, I think they're completely out of position on the grid relative to their performance. Yeah. So, but that's qualifying performance. How's their energy management going to go today? Wasn't their strong point in Mexico City.
No, absolutely not. So Vandoorne making his way towards getting his pole position trophy in a couple of moments' time. And he will be on pole position ahead of Robin Frijns, who will be alongside him on the front row of the grid. And then it'll be Nyck de Vries in 3rd. So still a strong performance from the Mercedes EQ team. And we'll see what they can do to convert that, because don't forget they had pace in the second race of the season and then slipped away a little bit. So we can now head down and join Radzi. And okay, we'll go to him in a minute. Right, now we can go down and hear from Stoffel Vandoorne. He is talking to Radzi after securing pole position.
Our pole winner, our pole sister, Stoffel Vandoorne. How on earth are you feeling?
Yeah, it's a great feeling. I was on pole here last year, actually. But today feels maybe a little bit more special, because I was struggling in the practice sessions. Couldn't get the car to work. I was, not really confident going into the quali session, but managed to kind of turn the things around. And yeah, every lap I did seemed pretty good. So yeah, very happy with another pole.
And it seems like Rome's a happy hunting ground for you. You mentioned pole last year. You also won it last year as well. Oh, look at this here, sportsmanship through and through. We'll come to Robin in just a second. But Rome, it's a track that really clicks with you.
Yeah, it's been historically very, very good for me. So yeah, I'm definitely not complaining. It's a circuit I enjoy. To extract the lap times here is you got to be so on the knife edge of the car, and locking left, right, everywhere, kind of throw the car around a little bit. But that's what I like to do. But yeah, it's going to be a long race ahead, so that's the main target now.
And during the break, you had a special moment. You turned 30. How was your birthday?
Yeah. Thanks for reminding. Getting, well, you know, it seems like the age is not affecting me that much at the moment. So, yeah, I guess I'm just getting more experienced.
Well, we've got another present for you. It comes in the form of this trophy here. We can invite to do the honours Marco Peroni, the head of Global Programmes, Partnerships and Sponsoring, to present the trophy, the Julius Baer Pole Position Trophy, to Stoffel Vandoorne, our pole sitter.
So Stoffel Vandoorne secures pole position for the Rome E-Prix. Another pole position trophy for Vandoorne after a very, very strong performance. And Ian James delighted with that one. A third pole in 4 races for Mercedes EQ, and in fact the other pole position was a Porsche, wasn't it? So there hasn't been all Mercedes EQ powertrains either. But nevertheless, it was a very impressive performance from Stoffel Vandoorne, and he will start on pole. He and Robin Frijns are now just having a little bit of a chat about how their laps went. This is the wonderful circuit on the run from the Colosseo Quadrato down to the Piazza dei Congressi down here, and this is the Piazza JFK. Let's go down to Radzi.
Robin Frijns, second after that qualification. You must be absolutely delighted.
I am also a bit disappointed, obviously, because if you make it all through those duels and then facing the final against Stoffel, you want to take that pole, obviously. So, yeah, it's a bit too many mistakes from my side in the last duel there, turn 3 and turn 10. I lost a bit too much time. I think I definitely could have matched Stoffel, because I did like 38.9 and 38.7 before, so I could show that I could do it. But, you know, I'm happy with P2. I didn't expect P2, first of all. I would expect us to be around P6, P7. So it's a good achievement to start in the mix of the Mercedes, really.
You mentioned P6 and P7. That would be in the duels. You've made the duel every single race so far this season. What is it about you in qualification? You're so consistent.
I don't know. I just feel very comfortable in the car at the moment from the beginning of the season. If I need to put the lap together, I actually can do it so far. So, but it's very close, you know. We all on basically high risk throughout the lap, and the mistake is very easily made. But so far so good, so I'm not complaining.
And so it's going to make for a very exciting race. Thank you very much for your time, Robin.
So Robin Frijns starting second on the grid, on the front row. That was down at turn 3 where he was in a lot of trouble, but he managed to just about get away with it. And a front row start for Frijns. And we will see what he can do. So here's a look back at the highlights of qualifying. Out in the first group, it was a big lock-up for Pascal Wehrlein coming into the chicane. Frijns made it through in the first part. There's a mistake from Jake Dennis down at the bottom of the hill at turn 3. He looped it around and got going again. That is where Sam Bird got frustrated. Both of the Avalanche Andretti's overtook him, and then he didn't make it across the line subsequently. He was also annoyed with Sebastian Buemi. Big lock-up from Nyck de Vries, which nearly cost him. Huge moment there. I think that was for Nick Cassidy in the Envision. And then Sebastian Buemi afterwards. Antonio Giovinazzi was out in the next groove. Oliver Rowland had a big lockup after being Larry all day and was unable to make it through. He still made it into the top 10. And then into the groups. Into the duels. Jake Dennis and Andre Lotterer were both eliminated. Robin Frijns beating Lotterer. Vandoorne then beat Jean-Eric Vergne, the DS Techeetah, out. And then Pascal Wehrlein lost out to the DS Techeetah of Antonio Felix da Costa, who, despite that slide, managed to make it through into the semi-finals. It was Robin Frijns versus de Vries in semi-final number 1. Frijns was able to make it through. Da Costa versus Vandoorne in semi-final 2. and it was Vandoorne that came out on top. And then Robin Frijns versus Vandoorne in the final, and despite that huge air, it was Vandoorne who took pole position for Mercedes EQ, moves up to third in the championship, and starts the Rome E-Prix at the front of the grid. So make sure you join us for the race later on, 3 hours from now. So exactly 3 hours from now, the race will be on about lap 1, I reckon, in 3 hours' time. There is, of course, the original Colosseum, about a 20-minute drive north of here, in the heart of Rome itself. We're in the Aur district a little bit further down. And as I say, 3 o'clock later on, there's Bertrand Vergne having a chat with Robin Frijns.
We could have gone with a very cool set if you wanted.
And they're discussing tyre strategy, which is quite interesting and also quite crucial.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to raise it because then...
All right, Dario and I are joined by Neil Jani. Neil, welcome from the Porsche team.
Thanks for having me.
A successful Mexico City E-Prix, made it through to the duels, didn't advance from the quarter-finals. Everything all right at Porsche? It's always great to get into the duels, but to advance no further than the quarter-finals, a bit disappointed?
For sure. I mean, after Mexico, you know, it's the first time we were up front all the time from free practice 1, free practice 2. This time it looks a little bit more difficult, but we know Formula E, it's unpredictable. One day good, one day bad, and you don't even know why sometimes.
Let's take a look at your guys in the duels, shall we? Pascal and Andre, of course, are your drivers. Dario, the setup for the cars is really important. It's the most important thing here in Rome, because as we've seen, a lot of drivers are finding it difficult controlling the back end in particular.
Yeah, I think that to actually put everything together and tie that lap together is so difficult in Formula E, to find a gain or from anybody else. It's just so difficult. I mean, Neil can speak to that, having done this for a couple of years. How, compared to what you're normally used to, compared to other forms of racing, how difficult is it to get everything together for a qualifying lap in Formula E?
Very difficult, and if you think about Andre, who actually missed most of FP2, I think he did actually quite a good job in the end, getting it at 250 lap in still. But you know, Formula E, you go 220 or 230 kilowatts in the group, and then 250 for one lap, and with the bumps, you hit the bump a bit differently, the whole thing comes apart, and software, and yeah.
And the corners come at you a lot quicker.
Yeah, exactly, and we've talked in the past about that difference between performance and the extra power that you get in the duels. It sometimes takes the drivers a little bit too long to get used to that extra power.
Oh. Yeah, it's from sitting here, yeah, absolutely. Look at the driver in that situation. You know, you've got to be inch perfect. It's not a case of being okay. You've got to be millimetre perfect on all these laps. And so what they're asking the drivers to do, from us watching, it's phenomenal. For the drivers themselves, it's so difficult. The group stages and then the different qualifying rounds to go through. Yeah, really hats off to anybody that can get it through, and the guys who are qualifying on pole have definitely earned it.
Neil, you guys have got two drivers of very similar personalities, nice and quiet, very cold and cool and controlled, until they get on the track, both equally as aggressive. What's going on now in the garage to prepare for the race itself?
Well, obviously trying to capitalize on P7, P8 in qualifying. Everything's still possible. You know, top 10 is always a good thing in Formula E. I think they have to work a bit on energy management, but generally, you know, the aim is points, points, points. Learn for tomorrow, because tomorrow is a new day for qualifying as well.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's go over to Radzi, who's with Antonio Felix da Costa.
Felix da Costa, that semi-final at one stage was 1,000th in it. It was in such a knife edge.
Yeah, it was. It's to be honest, I'm pretty pleased with starting in the front 2 rows. You know, that's good for me. We're trying to build momentum again, so I think this is good for what we're trying to achieve in the long term. But obviously, losing a duel for 100th of a second, it sucks. It really sucks, you know. And I know where the lap time was as well. So, in the end, I'm sure Stoff had a bit of time here and there as well. So it is how it is. But yeah, very cool. This new qualifying format is awesome. You know, this dual stages is super cool, like super knife edge and inside the car as well. So it's a good fun.
Something tells me you've got a lot of confidence going into this race. You look like a happy man.
Yeah, I do. I don't think I'm going to be making any friends today. So, yeah, definitely need to bring it out home in the podium, and that's the goal.
We'll look forward to see it. Thank you.
Two very confident drivers at DS Techeetah, Jev and Antonio Felix de Costa. Look like they're going to put a shift in later on in the race.
I think they're going to give the Mercedes boys a hard time, aren't they? The front of the grid is getting increasingly competitive, which I love.
Yeah, it's fab. And we should talk about the situation that occurred after qualifying for Sam Bird and Sebastian Buemi. A double glove slap from Sam. Obviously, he's been watching the Oscars. What's going on there?
Yeah, he's going to have to work on that, isn't he? The double glove slap was not a good look. I understand his frustration, all joking aside. You know, when you're doing a qualifying lap and you get held up like that, and sometimes you get that one chance. And you know, James Barkley was as close to furious as I've ever seen him. He said it's happened to both cars. So I think the FIA, the organisers, need to work out a way that we can stop this interference during qualifying, during the group stages of qualifying.
All right, we'll see how that pans out, Dario. Jack is with our pole sitter.
Yeah, Stoffel Vandoorne, a great performance from you. Were you surprised to be starting on pole, or you just expect it, right? 3 out of 4 Mercedes EQ poles this year.
Well, not expected, no. Actually, this one comes a little bit as a surprise, even though I was on pole here last year. I was struggling in the practice sessions, didn't really have a good feeling with the car, and I wouldn't say my confidence level was super high going into the sessions, but turned out all right.
And then the semi-final, you look to have it sort of relatively under control, and then you just hit the curb at the chicane, so heavy.
Yeah, exactly. I had a very good first and second sector, and then I made a total mess of the last one. You know, I hit the big curb in turn 12, kind of threw the car nearly around, and just managed to hang on to it. And I kind of just had to do enough to bring the car to the end, basically.
And so how are you feeling coming into the race? Because we've seen, obviously, you kind of dominated in the first race in Diriyah, but the second race in Diriyah, when Nyck was on pole, there was a bit of a struggle. Mexico, obviously, you weren't quite there. So how are you feeling now?
Well, it's a hard one, to be honest. You know, I was quite strong here last year, but again, that's not a guarantee. And we know with the attack mode, there's going to be a lot of strategy involved. I've got, you know, a lot of good guys behind me as well, and I got to try and keep them there. So let's wait and see. I think we can do a good job, and we just got to stay in the fight.
Cool. Well, best of luck. Back to you, Vergne.
Thank you.
3 p.m. local time. Or 2 p.m. local time. Oh, we're on. Hello. There you go. Hiya. Well done, Jack, and well done, Stoffel. Apologies. That was like being punched in the side by a stranger. So, Dario, one thing that we've seen today that's imperative is the setup of the cars. Because it's quote-unquote Jack Nicholls wibbly-wobbly, it's a true street circuit. Lots of peaks, lots of troughs. Do they raise the cars because of the bumps? How do they set up the car?
If I'm driving the car, I'm going to look at one big bump 7, and you deal with that, and it's like, can I deal with it? No, then I'm going to have to raise the car. But you can't raise it too much, otherwise the centre of gravity goes up too much, and it just messes everything up. So there might be a bit you have to actually back it off a little bit and just deal with that. Those massive compressions in turn 7. You talk about the overspeed sometimes when the wheels come off the ground. That only happens on acceleration, so that would happen between the turns 11 and 12, for instance, as the cars are going over those bumps. So yeah, all that's got to be thought out by the engineers, and then the dampers and everything. So it's there's a lot.
It's fascinating stuff, isn't it? Mercedes at the top, Stoffel Vandoorne on pole position. Dare I say they're back? It's only race 4.
Yeah, there's some competition though, isn't there?
There really is. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. They're all in the mix. DS Techeetah, Mercedes. We hope that Jaguar can get things back together. But I tell you what, we're in for a really exciting race. So make sure you join us 3 p.m. local time here in Rome. We will go green. It's going to be absolutely outstanding. We cannot wait. We'll see you then.
So we go green in Rome. And a big spin, and the 2 Mercedes collide. That's a superb overtake from Lucas de Vries. A spin for Nick Cassidy.
Yes! Redemption!